Hello guys, Free here. Welcome to today's presentation. Today we're going to be talking about liberating your code using some really interesting services. PythonAnywhere is the service we're going to be using. But before we go into the demo and the presentation, let's just lay a foundation of why this is really interesting or why this is an important topic. A lot of people have code today that might be sitting on your local machine. This could be logic, it could be scripts, it could be applications you've built over the years in Python or in any of your favorite programming languages. But code isn't very useful if all you do is keep it behind the four walls of your laptop or your machine. And so this whole need to democratize code or to liberate code into the world is a very powerful concept that we're seeing a lot. There have been many different approaches and paradigms to solve this, and everything from using hosted machines, VMs running in the cloud to run that code in there so other folks can access it. But where we see the industry really going is the whole idea of functions, right? Maybe using something like AWS Lambda or Azure Functions, and there are a lot of different providers out there that can run functions, and you can use that to liberate your code. And then this is really fueling the whole idea of microservices or serverless computing, and it's very powerful. So what we're going to do today is show another approach where you can do this without necessarily paying for, say, a Lambda or an Azure function if you want to do this in a very cost-effective fashion, and you don't get any better than that than doing it for free. So PythonAnywhere is going to show us how to run code basically for free. Now, that said, I have a little code that is running on my machine here. This is not going to win me any awards. It's a basic code. You can literally copy this from online, from Stack Overflow. And what this code does is it checks if a number is prime or not, right? Replace this with any interesting code you have, and I think the story is going to be pretty much the same. So if I run this code, what it does is you can give it a number. In here, 4, is that prime? And it says, nope, it's not prime, right? And if I, let's find a number like 5 as an example. And if I run this code, is it prime? And it says, yes, that's prime. Again, ABC, grade level programming. I think a 4th grader can do this in their sleep at this point in time. So this is an interesting code that we have on my machine. Now I want to expose this as an API. So I can access this from anywhere in the world, even if my machine isn't running. And I'm not going to do this with a Lambda. I'm going to show an alternative way that we can do this. So that said, let's go back into the browser. The service we're going to use is this PythonAnywhere, a really interesting service. You come in, you create an account. It's free. There are some paid options if you want to do some things that are a little bit more interesting. So just create an account, which I've done here already. And once you have an account, the very first thing you want to do is to go for the web apps. And what we're going to do there is add a new web application. Give it a name. And I'm going to use Flask. It's just a framework that supports Python. So let's go ahead and use Flask. And it's going to create this app for us called Flask app.py. So we're going to run our Python in that Flask. So click on next right there, and it should be pretty straightforward for us. So what this does is now it gives us an environment where we can implement our Flask code, and you can go ahead and put the logic in here. So just kind of check it all out. There are a couple of things that I want to get at is to go into. So we're going to go into files in there once we have our web app. And what you're going to do in here is select my site. So this is where that Flask app is going to be. Just open that py file. And this is where we're going to put our logic. So with the magic of copy paste, what I'm going to do here is basically just put in the code that we have from my desktop application. And we're going to make that available in here. If you're not familiar with Flask, there are lots of tutorials around that. But basically, you think about this as routes, which are basically API endpoints, and you can define logic behind the particular endpoint. So for me, it's a very simple app here, nothing too fancy. I'm going to define an endpoint called is prime, and it's going to take in a number. And once I get that number, so this is the implementation of that endpoint, I'm going to send this to this function, which is going to check if it's prime. So basically the function that we had from our desktop. And this could be any logic you have on your desktop. Bring it in here. So now that I have that taken care of, let's Control Z here. So now that I have that taken care of, I'm going to go ahead, save this, and this should save. And the way we're going to deploy this is to just make sure you run this to deploy that app. And we should be able to access that from the browser. Now, if I go back into my applications, I should have my web app here called Tech with Through, and I can access it. And the reason why it shows nothing is because I should go into this endpoint we define, and I'm gonna list that. So that's the endpoint and the value we want, say 4 in there. And if I run that, it says 4 is not prime, and it's calling that logic behind. And if I say, let's just put some random number there, I haven't really checked. Yep, that's prime. I have no idea if that's true, but I'll assume that is true. That is prime. And if I do 6 is not prime. Now, this is an API endpoint that I can access from anywhere in the world. And now my code that was sitting on my local machine has been liberated. And from anywhere in the world, I can access it by an API. And if you really wanted to, you can build an interesting dashboard on top of all of this. So really, really fascinating, something to check out if you have some code, some logic that is just sitting and not being used on your local machine. You might want to think about liberating that code so other folks in the world can use. Now, using PythonAnywhere is a good option. It's free. I haven't paid for it. Of course, you might want to check for the paid version, because I'm sure the folks that are putting this together have to pay their own bills too at some point. So definitely consider that. And then another option would be Lambda or Azure Functions, which I'm going to show you in future videos, how to still take a code like this, or any code for that matter, and run that as an alternative in an Azure Function or in an AWS Lambda, if that's what you choose to do. So guys, there you have it through here. Hopefully this was a very helpful tutorial for you to think about liberating your code. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to let me know in the comment section below, and I'll see what I can do. Again, you've been awesome. I've been through. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next video.